in very graphic terms in the story of the treasure tower. And he made it clear that an entirely new type of disciple would appear in the age of Mappo. He said to his own disciples, no, it's not your role. Your role is where you are now, in the age you live in now. The bodhisattvas that will appear to spread the teaching of the law in Mappo are entirely different people. And all these bodhisattvas appeared out of the earth. This is our innate mission, our innate purpose in being born, this particular age, is to find the Gohonzon, to practice it, and to teach it to others. Whether we find it quickly or slowly, whether we find it even at all in this life and have to wait for a next life, depends upon our good fortune, our karma, the causes we've made in the past, how much we may have slandered the law in the past. But in the end, find it we will, every single person who is born in the age of Mappo. And you can well understand that as time goes on and this planet gets older and older, so it is vital that more and more people on the planet are generating life force, not only in themselves, but in society as a whole, in order to keep everything vibrant and creative to the last. Of course, it's important to understand, too, that this is not the only planet, Buddhism would say, where human beings exist in this universe, or people similar to human beings. There are many, many planets. The universe is boundless. But this is the place where we, anyway, have chosen to fulfill our purpose. Okay.
The object of worship in terms of the person is Nichiren Daishonin, the true Buddha in the latter day of the law. Nichikan Shonin states, the object of worship in terms of the person is Nichiren Daishonin, of immense mercy, the incarnation of the original and eternal Buddha of Kuon Ganjo, who possesses the three virtues of sovereign, teacher, and parent, who planted the seed of Buddhahood into the people of the latter day of the law, and who is the Buddha of the true cause. Nichiren Daishonin declared that he himself should be considered as the true Buddha with the three virtues when he stated in the opening of the eyes, I, Nichiren, will be the sovereign, the teacher, and the father and mother to all the people of Japan.
Thank you. So Shakyamuni Buddha was the Buddha of the true effect, or the Buddha of the harvest. He and his disciples had practiced over eons. This is what he taught himself in the Lotus Sutra. And through those many, many eons of hard work and practice, they attained Buddhahood. They attained the true effect. But Nichiren Daishonin is the Buddha of the true cause. The cause that can be made in this lifetime and through which Buddhahood can actually be attained in this lifetime. Tremendous noises going on at the back. Is that putting you off? Would you like to come up nearer, anybody? Are you hindered by it? All right. Great. Sorry, I've lost my track for the moment. So Shakyamuni is the Buddha of the true effect. Nichiren Daishonin is the Buddha of the true cause. That is to say, as I know I explained this to you in the last lecture, the very nature of this world that we live in now, in this particular time of Mappo, is filled with the three poisons of anger and greed and ignorance and stupidity. That is why this world is so chaotic at this time. And to relate this situation, we must be born into all that mud and find Buddhahood from out of that swamp. Unless we could relate to everybody else in that way, how could we help each other to come out of it? As I think I said last time, if we were dressed in white clothes with halos round our heads, who could possibly relate to us? So it is our difficult task to be born into the swamp and mud of this world, and through relating to others, first find the Gons and then teach it to others. This must be done out of the mud. Otherwise, it would be something that didn't belong to this world at all. This is our mission. This is what we have always and eternally promised to do. Shakyamuni Buddha's disciples had another mission, which they promised to do. This was our mission as followers of the Buddha of Kuan Ganja. Now, this, of course, is difficult to understand. It seems theoretical. But the more one thinks about it, the more meaningful it becomes when we relate it to our own particular way in which we were shakabuku, the circumstances of our shakabuku, the people that we met when we were first shakabuku, the people that we felt we had a close relationship with, though we'd never seen them before. This is the mystic part of life, of course. Part of life that we can't see, yet in time we feel that connection more and more. In the Gosho it says, in lifetime after lifetime you will be born with your master. In lifetime after lifetime we have this purpose. As I often say, before we die, we shall make the promise again. When you end your life, or long before the end of your life, with a great victory, and you look back and you see the number of people that you've helped and shakabuku'd, of course you'll want to do it again. Maybe not in exactly the same way, but you'll wish to be born again as a bodhisattva of the earth, with the Gons. This is the mission of the bodhisattvas of the earth who appear in the age of Mappo, in this stage of the planet's growth and eventual decline. Okay.
In many of his writings, the Daishonin calls himself the votary of the Lotus Sutra. In letter to Lord Shimoyama, he refers to himself as a more important votary than Shakyamuni Buddha. Also, in his oral teachings, he says, Honzon, the object of worship, is the embodiment of the votary of the Lotus Sutra. Thus, here, the votary of the Lotus Sutra should be understood as one who represents the true Buddha of the latter day of the law. What is also important is that the outer appearance and activity of Nichiren Daishonin was that of the incarnation of Bodhisattva Jogyo, the leader of the bodhisattvas of the earth, while his inner identity was the incarnation of the original and eternal Buddha of Kuon Ganjo.
Well, this was a matter really of historical, documentary importance, because in the Lotus Sutra preached by Shakyamuni, when he talked about the coming age of Mappo, and he described the bodhisattvas of the earth appearing in order to spread the true teaching for that age, they were led by the great bodhisattva called Jogyo. So when Nichiren Daishonin first appeared and taught, it was as the votary of the Lotus Sutra, or the leaders of the bodhisattvas of the earth, that he was recognized. And this related exactly to the teaching of the treasure tower and the ceremony in the air in the Lotus Sutra. But as time went on, he was able, through the growing faith of the people who followed him, to begin to describe and explain and validate his actual role, which was the Buddha of Kuon Ganjo, the Buddha of time without beginning, who innately became enlightened himself, with nobody to teach him. Of course, a much deeper meaning than purely and simply the leader of the bodhisattvas of the earth.
We have thus far studied the object of worship in terms of the law and the person. In reality, however, these two are one, namely the object of worship, which manifests the oneness of person and law. Nichiren Shonin states in Meanings Hidden in the Depths, the object of worship in terms of the law and the object of worship in terms of the person are different in name, yet quite the same in reality. Person equals law. That is, the original and eternal Buddha is the embodiment of the principle of Ichinen Sanzen, and law equals person. That is, the principle of Ichinen Sanzen is the embodiment of the original and eternal Buddha. This is the truest and the most mystic law.
So person equals law is what is important for us. Through our practice to the Gohonzon, and through our ability to relate more and more to the Gohonzon, because we understand more and more the qualities of Nichiren Daishonin's life, we are relating to the law itself, because Nichiren Daishonin's life was one with the law. Therefore, in the end, through our fusion with the Gohonzon, our life state and Nichiren Daishonin's life state become one and absolutely the same. This is why, as I said at the beginning, he taught from the two aspects of the person and the law. And the most important thing is that the purpose of this teaching, the purpose of him embodying his own life in the Gohonzon, was so that we can become the same. Constantly in Gosho after Gosho, he said that we could do this, that this was the whole purpose of the practice. So in one of his writings, Sensei said it's as if when we're in front of the Gohonzon, we, the common mortal, from Kuon Ganjo, from the eternal past, face the Buddha of the eternal past. And through this dialogue between us, through, if you like, the teaching and the understanding that we gain from it, we develop absolutely the same life state as Nichiren Daishonin himself. This is the incredible thing about this practice. And of course, it's difficult to believe. Yet, what is it that makes us go on doing it? Because we see glimmerings of actual proof constantly, don't we? Day in, day out. Small things which make us realize that what this amazing man was teaching us is going to happen. And ultimately, we find, just as those who practiced 30, 25, 20 years have found, that this is true. They become Buddha. So, of course, they don't go about trumpeting it. They don't go about with limelights on themselves. They're ordinary human beings, carrying on an apparently ordinary daily life. But their effect on their environment, let alone upon themselves, is enormous. This is enlightenment in this lifetime, building of good fortune, both spiritually and physically, and the ability to create happiness not only in themselves, but in everything that they touch or have contact with, both human and every other living thing.
Kaidan, the high sanctuary of true Buddhism. Kaidan originally means the place in which priests take vows to observe the precepts. In Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism, however, believers do not have to observe any specific precepts other than one, to embrace the Gohonzon, discarding misleading religions. The Essentials of Nichiren Shoshu reads in part, the high sanctuary of true Buddhism is where the Daigohonzon of true Buddhism is enshrined. The sanctuary, which contains virtues of preventing wrong and eradicating evil against the supreme object of worship, and keeps the essential purpose of leading one to enlightenment in this life, is the central place where all who believe in and practice true Buddhism should come and worship. We should bear in mind that according to the profound doctrine of Nichiren Shoshu, the object of worship itself includes the meaning of the high sanctuary of true Buddhism. With regard to this, the Essentials of Nichiren Shoshu reads, through references to inherited documents, High Priest Nitatsu Shonin explains that the Daiga Honzon itself and the place where it is enshrined are the high sanctuary of true Buddhism.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Bill to jump a bit now, because this is rather an interesting statement. Why should it be that if the Daiga Honzon contains the secret law known as the Kaidan, a place must be provided outside of the Daiga Honzon? So in other words, really what the high priest is saying there is that the Daiga Honzon innately protects itself. The Kaidan is part of the Daiga Honzon, one of the three great secret laws and part of it. It protects itself, yet still there is a need for a formal Kaidan or sanctuary outside of the Gohonzon, such as our own Butsudan at home or the great Shohondo at the head temple. And this is answered if you look over on page 5, in the last paragraph on that page. Can you read it, Bill?
The significance of Nichiren Daishonin's will for the establishment of the high sanctuary. For what reasons did Nichiren Daishonin mandate on the three great secret laws and the Minobu transfer document that his followers should establish the high sanctuary of true Buddhism in the future, even though the Daiga Honzon itself includes all of the three great secret laws? The Essentials of Nichiren Shoshu explains as follows. First, Nichiren Daishonin ordered this as a goal in the process of propagation, the broad establishment of faith in and practice to the object of worship of the high sanctuary of true Buddhism. Secondly, he expected that all people would deepen their individual faith and practice toward this goal and attain enlightenment, with the respective benefits of transforming their illusions into wisdom, their errors into truth, and their sufferings into freedom. Third, he ordered the establishment of the high sanctuary as a central place where all people throughout the world who take faith in the Daiga Honzon could worship for their individual happiness and the peace and prosperity of mankind. For these reasons, the high sanctuary of true Buddhism has the grand purpose of saving all humankind throughout the future. This social and universal significance can be realized through its establishment.
So, in other words, the Kaidan, or the establishment of a formal high sanctuary, and the fact that we are encouraged to establish our own sanctuary for the Gohonzon, is again something tangible for us to grip onto. It makes clear and obvious to us the need to protect the Gohonzon as we would protect our own life. It symbolizes protection of such a treasure. And in the establishment of this sanctuary, it gives us a goal towards which we can work, which is tangible and understandable to us. So for hundreds of years, the followers of Nichiren Shoshu in Japan longed for the day when the secret law of the Kaidan could be established. This was a goal that went on for many years and seemed unrealizable until 1972, when the strength and power of the members was sufficient to create a sanctuary which was suitable for people to come and worship in from all over the world. This was a tangible goal for Kosen Rufu for them to work at. In the same way we worked towards a goal and opened the first building in Europe to establish the Gohonzon for Europe in. But that's only a beginning, isn't it? We all have in our minds a vision of a great building in years to come, which can take many, many more people who wish to come from all over Europe in ever-increasing numbers to chant Daimoku to the Gohonzon for Europe. Same with our own small Richmond Centre. One day we know it must be greater to house the Gohonzon for the UK. The same with our own Butsudan. We begin maybe with a very small and simple one. But as our good fortune grows, not only spiritually but materially, we desire to have something better to put our Gohonzon in. And we know that whatever we put into it, we shall get back in benefit through the law of cause and effect. So the Kaidan, the formal Kaidan, outside of the Gohonzon itself, has a significant and symbolic meaning to us, which is tangible and important. Though, of course, the Gohonzon protects itself, and in fact incorporates that secret law of the Kaidan within it. Then we can go back to this paragraph. Page 5, left-hand column.
The place where the Daiga of the three great secret laws, which Nichiren Daishonin inscribed in 1279 is enshrined, is the high sanctuary of true Buddhism. The places where other Gohonzon, copied by the successive high priests of Nichiren Shoshu who inherited the true lineage of the law, are enshrined, may also be called sanctuaries, and these have the same significance as the high sanctuary of true Buddhism. On the Gohonzon we worship daily are written the words, I copied from it, together with the name of the high priest who inscribed the Gohonzon. It indicates the Daiga of the high sanctuary of true Buddhism. Therefore, our sincere chanting to the Gohonzon at our homes corresponds to chanting to the Daiga of the high sanctuary of true Buddhism. About this, High Priest Nitatsu Shonin teaches as follows. Taisakiji, the head temple of Nichiren Shoshu, is the sacred place which includes the high sanctuary of true Buddhism, where the object of worship of true Buddhism, the Daiga is enshrined. Other Gohonzon, which are enshrined in other Nichiren Shoshu temples and the homes of every believer, are those which the successive high priests, inheriting the true lineage of the law, have copied from the object of worship of the high sanctuary of true Buddhism and conferred upon them. Therefore, irrespective of the locations of the Gohonzon, and although the places are not formal sanctuaries, our concentrated chanting of the Daimoku to the Gohonzon will simultaneously reach the Daiga. The places where we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo are thereupon the Buddha's land, or places where we can attain enlightenment in our lifetime.
So in other words, the Daiga is the prime point. This is the Gohonzon which Nichiren Daishonin inscribed, the prime point from which all other Gohonzons derive. Yet each Gohonzon is inscribed in the state of Buddhahood and can activate the state of Buddhahood in our lives. Therefore, there is a total and complete connection between oneself and the Daiga that Nichiren Daishonin inscribed, whether you are chanting to your Gohonzon at home or the Gohonzon for Europe at Tretz or in the Gohonzon in someone else's home. Everything is going back to the one absolute, constant, unchanging essence or source of life, which is represented on that Gohonzon. This is why, in a strange way, we find we can be in rhythm with each other. We discover that our members, say in Germany or in the States, are moving in rhythm with us, and we with them, and they with the members in Japan or in Hong Kong. This is an incredible thing, but it is because we are all tuning in to the one prime point, the one source of power and inspiration, which is the essence of life itself, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So it's this Gohonzon which brings us back into balance with that law or essence or rhythm of life. Every time we face the Gohonzon, we come back to that point, put our lives in balance, our thoughts in balance, our spiritual being in balance and our physical being in balance. Then we go off into the world, into our daily life. But in a few hours' time, we come back to that prime point, which is described in another Buddhist principle as Chu, of Ku, Ke, and Chu. Ku, the spiritual aspect or the unseen part of life. Ke, the physical or seen part of life. And Chu, the linking point, the point that harmonizes Ku and Ke, is Chu, the Gohonzon of the three great secret laws, the prime point or focal point of the balance of all life itself.
The Daiga Honzon is now enshrined in the Shohondo, the Grand Main Temple, which was built in October 1972. The Shohondo, as the Essentials of Nichiren Shoshu explains, is, as High Priest Nitatsu Shonin teaches, the high sanctuary of true Buddhism for this time, which fulfills the contents of On the Three Great Secret Laws and the Minabu Transfer document for entrusting the law Nichiren propagated throughout his life.
Okay, I'd like to go now straight over to the Daimoku of True Buddhism, which is on page 6.
The Daimoku of True Buddhism. The Daimoku of True Buddhism is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. This is embodied in the form of the object of worship of true Buddhism, or the great mandala. We common mortals chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo with faith in the Gohonzon. Chanting Daimoku includes both faith and practice for oneself and for others. Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism does not require we undertake such complicated practices as Shakyamuni's Buddhism, that is, the Four Noble Truths, the 12-link chain of causation, the 6 paramitas, and the giving up of illusions in order to attain enlightenment, Shikan. Remonstration to Hachiman states, from the 28th day of the 4th month in the 5th year of Kencho, 1253, up until the present 12th month in the 3rd year of Koan, 1280, nearly 28 years have passed in which Nichiren has devoted his efforts solely towards trying to nourish all the people of Japan with the teaching of Myoho Renge Kyo. Nichiren Daishonin consecrated his entire life to establishing the Gohonzon, so that all people in the latter day of the law might chant to it and attain enlightenment in their present existence. The Daimoku may be superficially understood as the devotion of one's life, Nam, to Shakyamuni Buddha's Lotus Sutra, Myoho Renge Kyo. However, the Daimoku of true Buddhism is much deeper than this. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, as declared by Nichiren Daishonin, is the seed implanted by the Buddha of the true cause, hidden in the depths of the Juryo chapter. To be sure, Myoho Renge Kyo is at the beginning of each of the 28 chapters of the Lotus Sutra, but the Daimoku of true Buddhism is not a mere title for the sutra. 4 faiths and 5 practices expounds upon this. The 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo are not the sutra's words, nor its reason, but form the heart of the entire sutra. The actual manifestation of the Daimoku of true Buddhism is the Gohonzon.
Thank you. So, this in a way explains the wholeness of this practice. It says Nam-myoho Renge Kyo is the seed which the Buddha of the true cause, Nichiren Daishonin, implants in each one of us. We meet somebody who suggests that we try chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. The seed which Nichiren Daishonin planted in somebody else is then also transferred and planted in somebody else until down an amazing path it's planted in oneself. And that seed blossoms through our practice to the Gohonzon. The chanting of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo to the Gohonzon of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo makes Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, life in the Buddha state, blossom in our own lives. The Gohonzon is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. It is life in the Buddha state. And as I said earlier, to make it tangible, Nichiren Daishonin inscribed his own life. His own life was Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. In turn, the more we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo becomes our life. And our life and the life on the Gohonzon fuse as one. So, of course, it's mystic that this should happen. Yet, the reasons for it happening become clearer and clearer as one thinks about it and practicing. But I can't overemphasize the fact that it is because Nichiren Daishonin inscribed his own life on the Gohonzon that it is tangible enough for us to relate to. Without this, we'd find it very difficult to develop qualities of the Buddha state in ourselves. So to view the Gohonzon not only as just a law, but also as Nichiren Daishonin's life is an incredibly important matter.
Anyone who has faith in this Gohonzon and chants Nam-myoho Renge Kyo to it can obtain the great benefit of attaining enlightenment in this life without fail. The entity of the mystic law reads, "Those who honestly discard provisional teachings and chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, taking faith only in the Lotus Sutra, can transform the three evils of illusions, errors, and sufferings into the three virtues of wisdom, truth, and freedom. With the three truths contained in their minds, the places where they live become the Buddha's land. The original and eternal Buddha, the entity of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo in the depths of Juryo chapter of the essential teaching, including both the entity and its place, both the life and its environment, both the body and its mind, and both the entity and its function, is indicative of Nichiren's disciples and followers. Through absolute faith in the Daigo Honzon, we can reveal its infinite power from within our own lives. Therefore, our daily practice of Gongyo and chanting of Daimoku is a solemn ceremony and the most important point in Buddhist practice."
Thank you. So I think the important part there is the last part of the second paragraph from the end. The original and eternal Buddha, the entity of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo in the depths of the Juryo chapter of the essential teaching, including both the entity and its place, both the life and its environment, both the body and its mind, and both the entity and its function, is indicative of Nichiren's disciples and followers. We go back to that prime point, time and time again, to chant our Daimoku and to do our Gongyo. And in doing that, whether we know it or not, we fuse with the entity which is Nichiren Daishonin's life. And through that fusion, we constantly understand that relationship between us and the Gohonzon more and more and more. And through doing that, as we leave the Gohonzon and go out into our daily life, so the Buddha state, if you like, clings to us more and more and more, until the Buddha state becomes the main tendency of our life, not only when we're in front of the Gohonzon, but also when we're living our daily life. This becomes our great desire the more we understand what that Gohonzon really represents, the more we understand Nichiren Daishonin's qualities and compassion and wisdom, courage. Our desire to become the same grows more every day we practice, to an increasing degree, until, as I say, the basic tendency of our whole life becomes one with his. We are not worshipping Nichiren Daishonin as a god. We are totally and fundamentally respecting the state of life that he attained and determining, because we want to be happy, to be the same. This is the relationship of ourselves to the person and law in the Gohonzon of the three great secret laws. So I know I've said some things which I said in a very similar way last time, but I hope through these two lectures that you've got some feeling and understanding now about the meaning of the three great secret laws, both on the Gohonzon in our own lives. So the next lecture that we have, we shall go straight through to the Soka Gakkai, the activities of the Soka Gakkai. The pages in between concerning various principles, such as the fivefold comparisons and so on, are not suitable material really for a lecture. But what I do intend to do is to try to produce a précis or summary of each of those points so that the bones of those principles are quite clear to you. And that I'll do in writing and give to you at the next lecture. So I do hope that you feel you understand a little more now about the three great secret laws. Thank you very much indeed for listening.